Super Mind Stretches.
It's got a charm to it. Is this live?
Let's go to a caller.
I don't have that functionality yet.
Brendan, can you just go to a caller?
I was not made aware that my roles would include such.
You're on the air.
This is a lovely cup of tea. Thank you, Tom.
You're welcome.
Tom and I used to do a live radio show Thursday nights. You appeared on how many? One or two?
Yeah, I was never live in the room.
No, you did
but
the
on the pre-records, that was good fun. Do you still have those?
They've got to be. Yeah, they must be somewhere. I'll have to put those
Deep
out.
archive.
Yeah.
That was a pleasure doing that with you, Brendan.
It was very fun, and it was lovely to have you. It was lovely for you guys to have me on. And I do remember listening to you guys and laughing a lot at your rapport.
Why, thank you.
Almost 20 years ago, I reckon, wasn't it?
20?
That's a long time.
Really?
It was a fair way back. I remember we did one live in Rundle Mall where we went out and like interviewed people in Rundle Mall. That's where I learned I tried to make myself look professional. So I had a clipboard, and you can imagine the result walking up to people in Rundle Mall with a clipboard, let alone like someone with a microphone.
It sort of swings both ways. I think if we didn't have the clipboard, people would have been very confused. Although we did have a sound person with us.
Yeah.
That probably lent us a little bit of credibility.
I'm trying to think what era, like podcasts were a new thing, I feel like then, because I remember they wanted us to make our show into a podcast after it went live.
Yes.
But it was always very kind of, this will be a podcast and it will go out as an MP3 on the website afterwards. But like these days, that must be, everyone's got a podcast. We've got a podcast. So if you went to Rundle Mall now, maybe we should do that again. Maybe we should take this to Rundle Mall to see what people...
Yeah. Update, ask the same questions.
Yeah, that's right. What were we asking people? We were asking... Now, this is good. This is good podcasting. We're just rehashing the same thing.
An old podcast, yeah.
You need to lift your microphone and give it a little bit more.
I thought it was just me. I was just getting lower and lower and lower.
as we hear Ben's voice go lower.
This is Super Mind Stretches. I'm Ben Crisp.
I'm Brendan Williams.
And I'm Tom Crisp.
Yeah, you are. You guys are brothers and stuff.
We made it to episode 2. This is very exciting.
I've been excited all week for this.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this. We'll catch up with you, gentlemen.
Yeah.
Lots been going on. You've been... you went to one of the iconic places in Australia, the Sydney Opera House.
That's right.
You saw Ben Schwartz.
I did. Took a quick little trip over to Sydney, Australia to see Ben Schwartz and Friends was the title of the show.
So who were the friends in the end? Was it local comedians, local improv performers?
It was not. I wasn't sure who was going to be ahead of time. I actually looked very little into it, but the friends were Los Angeles improv actors, performers.
Nice.
Yeah, so 3.
Oh, so they must have travelled over for the show.
They did all 3.
Oh, wow.
I think they did 3 shows, 2 in Sydney, 1 in Melbourne.
Yeah, because it'd have to be a pretty specialist skill. It would be hard to just get up and do improv with a world-class improv performer if you've not built that rapport, or if you don't have the same kind of...
So
yeah.
That's what I thought as well. So I think these guys had been doing some shows in the States together.
Yeah,
and
cool.
and I didn't actually know any of the other 3 by name or from seeing them. Afterwards learned that they'd been on some TV shows and things like that. But audience reaction to some of them was big. Like they knew the names, and I think they're on whatever College Humor is now called and things like that.
Would we be able to find them if we looked up the show, or was it because it wasn't like published beforehand, was it?
I don't think so, but off the top of my head, Jess McKenna was one.
Okay.
She was fantastic.
That rings a bell, Jess McKenna.
Yeah. She got the biggest reaction from the audience when her name was announced as well. People were like, "Oh crap!"
My sister listens to some because she listens to that. Hey Riddle. But they're all in Chicago. They're all in like the IO Theater and but she they get guests onto that podcast,
right? And
so a lot of them, and then one of them moved to LA, I think. So yeah, they're all over the place, and so they would have name dropped a whole bunch of up and coming improvs.
Yeah, sure. Jess McKenna was, definitely the next strongest after Ben Schwartz, in my view. One of the others was Colton something.
Right.
And the other guy I can't remember. But they were all very good. And because we were traveling over from Adelaide to Sydney, just for a quick weekend trip, we thought we'd go to both shows because unlike, I guess, other stand-up shows, you could expect an improv show to be different on the 2 nights.
Yeah, you're going to get 2 very... I didn't even think of that, yeah.
How cool.
Yeah, and so the first night at the State Theatre was an absolute romp. The crowd energy was excellent. People were loving it. They seemed very excited to be in Australia. I was surprised they weren't too jet lagged or too overwhelmed or anything.
It's a massive flight now, isn't it?
Yeah, and as far as I could tell, they'd only come in like the day before, or they had like one full day maybe in Sydney.
And they're not flying first class. If you're getting only one or two surnames, like in recount of the show, maybe Schwartz is, but he's got a bit of a man of the people kind of vibe to him.
They probably get on the plane and just make it up as they go. Once they're on the plane, like, what seat am I going to sit in?
The improv starts at LAX. They've got to improv their way onto the plane like they've got tickets, and they didn't.
Yeah. If anybody could do it, though, those guys.
Say, have you got anything like explosives or firearms in your bag? And they go, yes, and and then I get to finish the sentence.
No.
So
that's how many careers.
This is the show where they do like asking the audience like what's something that's happened in your week or something like that, and then they improvise the whole thing.
That's right. Very simple question. They get the house lights up. Well, they sort of did a bit of an intro. Then house lights came up and they said, right, we want someone in the audience to tell us the most exciting day or the most exciting night of their life.
Mm-hmm.
And they let the crowd stew up for a bit, talk for a bit. Got people to raise their hands. Just got one sentence from people first, I think just to weed out any potentially not interesting stories.
Yeah.
But as soon as they got one they liked, the roaming mic was given to them, and then they do a back and forth for about, it feels like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And that bit is also comedy gold.
Yeah, they're incredible. I've only seen what I've seen of Ben Schwartz and Thomas Middleditch on Netflix.
Yes.
And just those are so charming parts when they're just asking the crowd and riffing with them as they're getting the information.
Because I think part of that is you're getting their initial reaction to the story as well. So they're very generous with their reaction, but very good at their questioning to get good details. The best I could pick was that they were trying to basically get what happened and then make sure there are enough characters for them to play, because there's 4 of them, and they part of the format is they jump in and out of the different characters. And this is what I love about this format is that they don't just pick one of the characters in the story and play that the whole way through. It's a very like tap in and tap out of the scene.
That's unreal that they can like have the memory to be able to like remember what's happened, to switch characters.
Oh boy.
Now you pronounced it Schwartz, Ben Schwartz. Is that like something I don't know, or is that just how you said it just then?
Oh, did I say Schwartz instead of what?
I just thought it was it was one of those moments where I was like, I've been saying it wrong, but then I thought Ben Schwartz.
I've never examined the way I say that. Schwartz.
It's a fun word, though, isn't it?
Schwartz. Yeah.
Schwartz.
So I said Schwartz maybe that I'm just a lazy Australian saying Schwartz instead of really picking it up.
It's black, isn't it? Does it mean black in German?
Schwarzkopf. Yeah.
Schwarzkopf.
Schwarzer beer.
Is that black beer?
Yeah, that's stout
beer.
Ah.
Yeah. Or dark beer.
The Schwartz words?
Schwarz.
I was about to start trying to interrogate what Schwarzenegger must mean, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to bail out of that.
I can remember Schwarzkopf, the name. It was Schwarzkopf, the line of
it's cosmetics.
Cosmetics. Yeah. I was and their logo was a little black head. That
makes sense.
Does Kopf mean head?
Yeah. Kopf is head in German.
So is that real? The cosmetic line is black head. Which
literally, yes. I don't know if that's
the name of a famous blemish that you were using cosmetics to cover.
Maybe that's how they got it.
It's bizarre.
Yeah.
That'd be like calling Estee Lauder like Zit or something. Like.
Yeah. I've never looked into it. I just remember that's what it was, and I always thought it was
acne.
I think I just liked saying Schwarzkopf. I just like saying it like that.
Colonel Schwarzkopf. He had the smoothest skin in all of the camp.
His paws were invisible.
You said paws. Of course, my brain went to like bear paws or like, animal paws.
See, this
and I took one as well.
To bring it back to Ben Schwartz, this was something that they were definitely struggling with, hearing Australian audiences.
Right.
In one of the stories that came out involved someone mentioning getting some sneaky Maccas.
Sneaky Maccas.
McDonald's, which of course they are familiar with McDonald's, but in the US it's not referred to as Maccas at all. And just the sound of Australians saying Maccas.
Yeah.
And what they're hearing is Mackers, like Mackers. And so there was a good minute back and forth while they tried to figure out that one.
Yeah.
It was really interesting. The whole crowd as one really worked together to explain this thing to them.
Because, we've got like the English will have like, a cheeky Nando's. We'll have like a sneaky Macca's. But is there an American equivalent then? They do everything big though, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
We're like,
they're shameless about it. They'll just go and get that fast food.
Yeah. A shameless Arby's.
Yeah.
We have the meats. I'm pretty sure that is the Arby's.
Where's the beef?
And there was this thing that Arby's was like, because roast beef, like it's RB, roast beef, right. And then they call it Arby's. I don't think that's true, but I think that's...
never put that together.
Yeah, yeah.
ARBEE.
Yeah, and don't put it together because I don't think that's true, so take it apart.
Arby's. Yeah. It's funny how, like, McDonald's, if you did believe that Ray Kroc movie with Michael
the
Keaton.
founder.
Yeah, which I love that movie. Yeah. But, like, it feels like they kept the name because it sounds so American. But it's so hard to put yourself back. Like, I don't know if that's just a self-fulfilling thing now.
Yeah.
Where absolutely, McDonald's sounds like a trusted kind of family fast food kind of place.
Uh-huh.
I guess definitely more like Crocs, but
yeah.
Ray Crocs. Cool. I mean, a crocodile.
That could be a Florida burger chain.
Yeah, I'd eat at a Crocs. Burger. Crocs sounds more like a burger chain now that I think about it than McDonald's. McDonald's has got like a real Scottish Highland sort of sounding.
McDonald's.
Old McDonald's.
Or Irish, and there was a lot of like anti-Irish sentiment in like the US at the time. So it's interesting that name became like a household name or something.
Mm-hmm.
There's other words that would be odd now if you pitched it as the name of a company.
We can't do Crocs because that got taken by the shoes.
Yeah, but if you said to someone, see, this is where you can't do a blind test, can you? Like,
no.
Does Crocs sound more like a shoe company or a burger company?
Right.
Now it's shoe.
Yes.
Because Crocs can't... I reckon your older sister, Therese, was the first person I ever saw wearing Crocs.
That'd be right.
Her
she was
Mark
always
came
trendy.
to the house with Crocs on. I'm like, what are those? And she said, they're the best.
Everyone's
and then people started wearing them. And this is going back, 15 years. And people started wearing them. And then there was a whole lot of hate for Crocs. And then they went away. And now people have gotten over that. And they've come back in a huge way.
Yeah. People
have, like... come to terms with the fact that they're probably the most comfortable thing you can put on your feet. I don't have a pair, but my sister will not stop talking about her Crocs.
They're big in like hospitals and medical.
Yeah, that's where they started, weren't they? Like surgical shoes, like for the OR, I think. Speaking of OR, last week we spoke about ER.
We did.
And that had Linda Cardellini in it.
Mm-hmm.
And Linda Cardellini is the love interest in the founder. So it all comes around.
Oh, you brought that, huh? That was good.
Yeah, I did. Oh. You were worried for a second, were you?
I was.
But she's in Freaks and Geeks.
She is in
and
Freaks
and Geeks. Look at us here.
Look at us here. So appropriate.
I'm looking here at a clip of the Curiosity Show.
Oh!
As always, we'll do a bit of a blind tasting of it. Now, we've only two episodes in, so Brendan is very familiar with the Curiosity Show.
This is the opening credits and different screenshots are flying across a sort of gridded matrix green background, and Curiosity Show is written up the top, and it's vanishing. It's off in a vanishing point on this metric sort of.
I feel like I'm going to be playing
grid.
Like Pong, like a 3D Pong.
Yes, there was a game called Blockout, which was like a 3D top-down Tetris. On the IBM compatible, and that really conjures up memories of that.
All the early kind of video games that were trying to kind of create 3D or like 2.5D, it was all this sort of thing, wasn't it? Like grids and perspective and vanishing points, which is like, don't they say that like in the Renaissance it was, Da Vinci and all those kind of artists were figuring out perspective and the physics of these lines and things, and that's when they were able to really create reality. If you think about like the modern era of computer graphics, it's the same sort of idea of like the physics of ray tracing and vanishing points and lines.
And it probably would have been in its infancy here. Like, this would have been what they would have made this graphic on. Would have been the prosumer sort of computer gear, like finally available to like Channel 9 at the time,
because
we're
these spanning the 70s through to the 90s.
Yeah.
This clip is the 3-hat puzzle. I'm trying to think what the 3-hat puzzle would be.
I know exactly what it is.
You know what this one is going to be.
Yeah.
I don't know what this one is going to be.
I should try and have a guess at it, because I don't think I know this one.
Yep.
I'm picturing, maybe because I've been watching lots of clips about like logic puzzles and stuff, I'm picturing like the guessing which hat you're wearing if you're like in a line of people facing. You know what I'm talking about?
No, as in it is like a lot. Like I get 3 questions or something like that. Is that
yeah?
That
Or
sort
it's
of
like
thing?
you got like 3 people and 2 of them are facing a wall and one's standing behind the other, and there's like 2 black hats and 1 white hat, and you got to guess what hat. Those
hat
kind
I'm
of problems.
wearing.
Yeah,
I love that stuff. There was a really good one that was presented to me when I was in high school, and I just loved it. I drew it and showed it to everybody. I don't think it's the same as the one they do on this segment, but
not to throw any more of your teachers under the bus, although your story last week wasn't a throwing under the bus. It was just more
throwing under the bank.
I did give a little bit more information about people's banking habits than
Italian stereotypes. But didn't you have a teacher at school that was giving you a logic puzzle that absolutely infuriated you?
Oh yeah.
Tell me that story.
Oh, that's a great memory, Ben. So there's a great old riddle, like somebody says, brothers and sisters, I have none, but this man's father is my father's son.
Do you know that one, Tom?
I've heard that one.
So someone's looking at a picture and like, brothers and sisters, I have none, but this man's father is my father's son. So who is the man in the picture to this man saying it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Pause the pod now. Figure it out. If you haven't figured it out, now you.
I'll tell you that. Can I tell you the wrong answer? The wrong answer is that the man saying it is looking at a picture of himself, looking in a mirror. And I had a teacher in primary school who was adamant that was the answer to the riddle. And I'm all of 10 years old saying, you're just wrong. And she actually went out and got all these little handheld mirrors and said, everybody, come on, let's do it together. Let's hold these mirrors, look at yourself and say, brothers and sisters, I have none, but this man's father is my father's son. And I was looking in the mirror and I'm like, this is not making it any more correct.
When you first said it, the brothers and sisters sounded like a present. You were saying brothers and sisters.
Brothers and sisters. I have
brothers and sisters. I have a nun in the car.
But
if you don't put
this
$1 million in unmarked bills.
But this man, father.
I love the detail of that story that fascinates me is the going out and getting the mirrors.
Yeah, she was so sure.
Not understanding the riddle enough, but preparing this thing. Hey, but look, I mean, what a teacher to be going into that level of prep and going out and getting mirrors.
Yep. Takes real gusto to be that's incorrect.
That'd be
confidently wrong.
That'd be a good scene of your life in like a biopic where it's like, and there's this child, Brendan. I'm still picturing him with the beard for some reason, but staring into this little mirror, and then, you know, the symbolism. Maybe the mirror cracks. Maybe your little fist clenches in like the frustration. And then it's like a little split thing. Split mirrors with like personality, like splitting. Always a great motif.
Mm-hmm. So it's the man's son, right?
Yes. Yeah. Brothers and sisters, I have none, but this man's father is my father's son.
Because the doctor was a woman.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
You assumed the doctor was a man. Wait, is that one?
That's my internalized. Yeah. Well, see, at university, I did a subject called puzzle-based learning, so I would have been a little bit embarrassed if I wasn't able to solve that one. But I feel like, you could just work backwards on that one. Just be like, my father's son. Just that's your first bit of information. That's quite easy.
And you can just put that in brackets and just kind of like reduce that to...
I love some brackets.
Yeah, I love me some brackets.
I'm just picturing a really frustrating teacher, though, who just relishes in the fact that it's puzzle-based learning. And they just walk in and they just like talk, like, blub, 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 blub. If you can decode that, you can figure out the
lecturer was Polish, so that is kind of what it sounded like, actually.
By the end of the semester, if any one of you students could tell me what's in this box, you get to choose whether you have it or I have it.
I went just a combination lock on the door, and it's just like, the class doesn't start until one of us gets in.
It's funny you should say that this segment that we're about to look at, because Ben has paused it on the opening screen, and it's actually a clip from the opening like credits of the Curiosity Show at one point in its tenure, and you've got this perspective grid going off. And when you said 3 hat puzzle, I almost thought you could have meant that perspective puzzle where you've got the 3 of something that are actually literally the same size if you measured it.
And but there's angled
place
lines.
it against the angled lines. Because that would work. If you had 3 hats and put it in front of that, one would look bigger. The one at the back would look bigger because you've been forced to think perspective.
Gestalt
but that's
theory.
Gestalt
theory is all about. There's a dude called Gestalt. Probably mates with Schwartz and
Schwartz.
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 And Gestalt was the one who figured out all the things about how there's persistence of straight lines. So when you see a line vanishing behind an object, our brain will assume that it will continue.
What's that cool sketch from around that Renaissance period of like somebody had put it? Was it? I don't know if it was it Escher? I don't. It had like a picture of someone's window, and he was looking out the window, and he had a little grid, that he'd made with string or something, and he was like painting the view out of his window through like this grid. He was looking at what appeared in the grid, and it's a famous.
That was Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible 3.
I think that might have been it.
Now all I can think of is Escher being an Escher as well, just like having a bum bag strapped around his like chest and
MC Escher. There's a meme. We're making that after we finish.
That's going to be a T-shirt.
Yeah.
All right, the 3 hat puzzle. I'm pretty sure it's nothing to do with what I was thinking it was.
I think it is. Oh, the first thing you were saying.
Hello, welcome to the Curiosity Show. Here's a problem for you concerning 3 people, Jack, Jill, and...
See? No Mo on
No
Deane.
moustache.
I knew it happened in some periods. He went sans Mo.
That's the biggest puzzle already.
He's also wearing a blindfold at this point, so he actually looks a bit like Bob Dylan to me, weirdly.
Bob Dylan have a blindfold? Is that a
it's
reference?
Just the lack of seeing his eyes. Maybe I'm filling in the blanks.
Okay. No moustache, blindfold. This is already like and then some sort of disco.
Excellent sort of like sweater jumper.
The two-tone with a kind of tan.
There's a name for that kind.
A nice
cut of jumper.
Brownish, light brown and cream. But it's also this set. Did we start on a... We started on like a big wide. We've got some TV.
See, stuff like that like really drew me in as a kid. Like
we're behind the camera.
Yeah, you're getting to see there's you got a big camera boom there and the set in the background. And you're getting to see, I love that. You can see the
lights up in the gantry above. There's the big boom microphone. What else are we seeing here? Other parts of the set. That was always great in any like TV show where you pan off to the side or something. Do notice the cameraman's wearing the exact same jumper as Deane Hutton as well.
Just in case he needs to jump in and double.
Well spotted. Maybe there were 2 Deans all along.
Here's a problem for you concerning 3 people, Jack, Jill, and Deane, and 5 hats. And as you can see, 3 of them are white and 2 of them are yellow. Now, here's what happens. Jack, Jill, and Deane are all blindfolded, and then somebody comes into the room and puts 1 hat on each head and hides the other 2 hats. Then Jack and Jill have their blindfolds removed so that they can see the other 2 people, but they can't see their own hat. Each of us is asked to work out what colour hat we're wearing. Well, Jack says nothing, Jill says nothing, but Deane, who's still blindfolded, is able to correctly say what colour his hat is. How could that be?
How could that be?
Great setup.
So then,
and it gives you time to think about it.
A little interstitial thing.
There are several possibilities. Here's what might have happened. Jill might have had a white hat, and Jack could have had a yellow hat, and perhaps Deane had a yellow hat too. Had that been the case, Jill would have looked at Jack and Deane and said, they have the 2 yellow hats, there are only 2 of them, mine must be white. But she didn't say anything at all. Here's another situation that could have arisen.
Breaking it down to each possible path, logic path.
Jack could have had a white hat as well. Had that been the case, Jack would have looked at Jill because he knew Deane had a yellow hat, and he would have waited for her to say hers was white, which would have told him that his was yellow. But she didn't say that, so he knows that his is not yellow, not the same as Deane's, so he says his is white. But he didn't say anything either. And so my hat could not have been yellow, because we would have heard from one of the other 2. Only one other possibility. My hat must have been white. That's how I knew. Now, you may need to talk to somebody else about that problem, because you know the old saying, 2 heads are better than 1.
Nice one.
Classic. So, they've gone this kind of very charming lo-fi thing with like ice cream containers. These are the old yellow and white ice cream containers. There's no hats involved here. Whenever he points at a hat.
That would have been a Bilo plastic container. And a Franklin's.
Franklin's no frills.
It might not have been Bilo. It might have been the
Bilo
black
was the
and
yellow.
gold. That would be the black and gold. I don't know who had black and gold. Was that Coles or Woolies? I don't know.
And then balloons that have just been hastily sort of texted in with faces on them.
And some texture hair on top as well.
Like,
but no
weirdly
blindfolds.
Specific choice, though, as well.
Yeah.
Because they could have easily just done hats or like mannequins and people. And I would argue this would be better demonstrated that way. Because this is not something that... It's not like, well, kids have got access to balloons and ice cream containers, so you could just do this at home. Because it's not like a game or an experiment that you need this with. I like it, though. No Mo very much changes Deane Hutton's face.
Doesn't it?
Do you trust him more or less?
Well, from this angle, I'm getting like Frank Woodley vibes from like Lano and Woodley without the Mo. Maybe something to do with the kind of his sort of, the shadows under the eyelids.
Definitely a Mo fan, but I will trust Deane no matter what.
Oh, in a baggy sweater like that, you're going to go with him 100% of the way.
The hair feels a bit more relaxed as well, I would say. A little shaggier, but still,
a little less
still
Lego
cropped.
man.
Yes.
There are thousands and thousands of these YouTube videos in clips. So it would be hard for them to go back and do it now, but I'm pretty sure that they don't have like what date it aired or anything. That would be
this is going to be the mystery. We're going to have to piece this together. So like this is a very like 80s background to me. Last time we had the kind of wooden balloony question mark shapes in the background. Very wood paneled, which just evokes the 70s for me anyway. Our house was from the 70s, I think, growing up, and had like wood paneling on the sides.
Classic.
This is now like we got some neon green and yellow stripes and angles and things in the background, which is almost the only thing dating it for me, because this could be and the video quality, but like, this could be a segment from Play School or something with the ice cream containers and the only other bit that dates it for me is this weird blocky frosted glass that the tabletop is on. Well, actually, that looks like a kitchen counter.
Yeah, it does.
From
like a linoleum sort of,
But then the base of this, whatever this is that just a table? It's the weird frosted glass that they have in those like toilet blocks and stuff, or like a swimming center.
Yeah, the glass bricks
where they're individual 20 centimeter by 20 centimeter,
like a clear. Glass. It looks like ice blocks or something like that. Like you've made a clear igloo or something.
I didn't even see that's what they were. I thought that green at the top of them was like green paper or something. I think what's going on, but that's just the distorted light of something green.
You've got a
behind
whole Curiosity Show episode just with the distortion
just looking
of light.
At these. Yeah, absolutely. There's probably one. There is probably one.
So that could be if you were building an igloo, there's the white snow that you need for the bricks, but then you want clear ice for your windows, I'm guessing, don't you?
Yeah.
If it was the ice hotel from Die Another Day, the last of the Pierce Brosnan James Bond movies, that's the kind of thing you're going to need.
That's the one with the invisible car? Is that the one?
Yes, I think it is. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
They call it the Vanquish. We call it the Vanish. That line.
There is there's a few YouTube videos you can see on how to make like perfectly clear ice.
The trick is you need no minerals in the water.
Mm-hmm.
They say use boiled water because you've gotten rid of a lot of the ice bubbles.
Yep.
And then the third thing I've heard about is
what was the one thing that to ensure that it freezes from the top down?
Yes, like a frozen lake would.
Yeah. What was it that they did to ensure that? I can't remember.
There are ice cube trays you can get that have got like they're in two segments, so it freezes and from the top down and pushes all the sediment or all the minerals and stuff into the bottom layer, and then you snap it out.
Yeah, right.
And so you're basically leaving the bottom of the ice cube.
Yeah. Oh, I saw this other really cool video of a dude who was making like spherical clear ice maker, so you can make the spherical ice blocks for like whiskey glasses that have the rounded bottom.
Is that just out of like a melon baller kind of thing, like two melon ballers or two ice cream scoops kind of?
He was making one out of copper because copper's extremely thermally conductive.
Oh.
And so if you put copper on it's one of the most thermally conductive materials. So if you put it on ice, the ice will just start to melt because it's, transferring the heat into the ice so efficiently.
So why do they use copper piping for like water and hot water and stuff? Wouldn't you lose a lot of heat out of that?
I think you would.
Oh,
is that just
aesthetic?
Malleable and
maybe
and just it doesn't leach. It doesn't
Into
corrode,
the water,
and it doesn't leach chemicals.
Okay.
So lead doesn't corrode, but it's bad for the water. And steel, like you'd have to do a lot to it for it to not corrode. So I think it's just a malleable, ductile, non-corrosive.
So this guy was making ice, like
the way he was doing. I love watching like machining videos these days. And so the way this dude was doing it, he designed the 2-part press. So you'd like freeze a cube, then you'd put it on this bottom part of the copper bed, and then you'd place the other part on top, and it would press it down, and you could watch it go, and it would make all these really crackly, squeaky, ice melty, slidey noises, and you could watch it slowly fall because the ice was just like melting before your eyes.
I think you're thinking of Doc Emmett Brown from Back to the Future 3, where he makes ice with his really crazy machine.
His crazy machine. But the thing that I really dug about it is the way he did it. The things you can do that is he modeled this thing in a 3D modeler,
right,
in some CAD software, and then he 3D printed a mock-up of like a positive mock-up of what it will look like, and then he took those 2 parts and coated them in a ceramic liquid. It was like liquid drying ceramic.
Okay.
And he painted them in all the bits and whatnot, and he let that dry. And then he did it again, and he let that dry, and you do coat after coat after coat. Apparently it takes like a few weeks or at least a week for it to cure completely. I think that's right. And then what he would do is drill into it and bake it. So the baking hardened the ceramic and burnt away all the 3D printer material, like the polymer or the resin material. It would just burn it away. So you have this perfect
ceramic
negative, this cast of the item, and then he'd pour molten copper in.
Oh, wow.
And the fidelity with which and then you'd break the mold open, and you've got this incredibly, you could almost see the 3D printing marks from the resin that were captured in the negative ceramic, then captured on the casting, and like the tiny resolution to which you could get like angles and things, it was mind blowing. And I'd never heard of ceramic, like a paste, like a paint that then you will just dry to this fireable ceramic shell.
That's super
cool. Yeah,
so cool.
I don't know the name of the YouTube video, but he seemed like a cool guy.
Yeah, I don't know if this is true or not, but I'd heard that when you're talking about spherical objects and the smoothness of them, because that's another thing, is those videos where people just getting like aluminium balls as smooth as they can, mirror finish and even more. I think I'd heard, maybe it was Adam Savage from Mythbusters, maybe passed this factoid on, but it was a cue ball from a pool table. If you blew that up to the size of the Earth, it would be just like absolutely cavernous and giant mountains and all that. And if you did the opposite and took the Earth, which we know has like many mountains and valleys and whatnot, and shrunk it down to the size of a cue ball, it would be the smoothest smoothest sphere that we've ever had.
My mind. Yeah,
because they need these incredibly smooth spheres in like aeronautical engineering, I think, and in like space shuttle parts and stuff.
Right.
I cannot remember what they're for though, but there's a whole science to like because you have to use an abrasive surface to try and smooth something, but then the smoothness is limited by the abrasion of that surface.
Right.
Like you hit this kind of point where you can't go any further.
Yeah. And I think they talk about the only way to get items like perfectly flat is against each other and just continuously like two materials. Because you'll never, if you keep changing and going, there's something about that. That's how you get the when they make these what are they called? The measuring
micrometers.
Yeah, they're sort of like Adam Savage has
one with
them.
the pinchy thing.
Yeah,
like
there's some
calipers.
when you get to a certain level of accuracy of measurement, then you're not really measuring it. You're comparing it with something that you can get these ceramic. I cannot remember the name of them, but they're metric cubes and like lengths, and they're exactly the right weight or things. So you end up calibrating your equipment to these things.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Because they're because they're made of ceramic, so they don't expand or contract or anything. And the way they machine them, I think there's it's something against another thing. Two things together is the only way you can get really. Yeah.
So because you've worked in a post office before, and your post office that in your old neighborhood has got some of the old weights and measures kind of materials, because that used to be what the post office or a town hall used to be, where you'd go to measure the yardstick or the pound or the whatever. So if you're going to sell a pound of goods in the market and someone thinks, hang on, you're ripping me off, or your scales are no good or something like that, you can go to the town hall.
Like that scene in Karate Kid Part 2. where he has a chalk. He has a chalk measuring because he's people off. Yeah.
Absolutely. He's made it out of plastic. It's not actually out of lead.
Yeah, and Chosen is trying to rip off people and
if you go around England and they've got all these old the original yardstick, and that's where and then they'd sort of measure it in Paris or London, and then they'd send out the copies to all the local towns and stuff like that. And that's and it wasn't until I guess the 20th century where they then standardized things, because a meter used to be the length of a meter long rod. And I think it was like iridium or something that wouldn't deteriorate.
Yeah.
And then they switched it to the standard of now it's like the distance that a photon emitted by a certain isotope will travel in one 297,000th of it, because it's like reverse engine. It's like the speed of light, basically. Is like
just so we can keep it the same.
Yep.
That is looking up standardization of measurements is one of the. Do you ever have those Wikipedia pages that you just have to kind of go back to every year or so just to remind yourself of like the history and like what it is? Because I'm like, that's super interesting, and then I forget about it until the next year.
Christopher Lee's biography on Wikipedia.
Oh yeah,
that's what you can keep going back and seeing all the different weird things he's done.
That's a long.
Oh boy, that's a rabbit hole.
Brendan, was it Gauge Block?
Gauge Block, yes, Gauge Block. Gauge Blocks. It's so simple. So simple. Sorry, thank you, Tom. Yeah, because isn't because we're all Smarter Everyday fans here, and Destin's dad is it a metrologist?
Right.
Like someone who's like. Thing is measuring and getting stuff down to and it's funny that I think I heard the argument of American imperial or like against metric and English the measurements are like I think the actual standard units for a pound of weight and I think like an inch, they are now defined by their portion of a metric measurement. Right. So they've changed the standardization so that like the argument's kind of like over now because even your like even
tell
your
that to the Americans.
Even your pounds and inches are now actually not defined by a rod or a weight in a platinum weight in a safe in France. They are defined by like
they're going to change the name of the Gulf of Mexico. They'll change, a meter.
Yeah, that's true. I shouldn't get too cocky. Someone will
even the
undo
spelling.
Even
they already changed.
I'd like to be a metrologist, but someone that just guesses, like an estimetrologist. Like just I reckon that's about.
That's about that. Yeah,
10 meters.
You just call you and you just come and eyeball it.
Yeah.
Smarter Every Day. What's his name? The guy?
Destin.
So he popped up on a podcast I was listening to. Popped up on an episode of Search Engine the other day, and it made me think of you because he was talking about making something fully made in America.
Right.
And he was exploring the idea of like, can you still manufacture? And it made me think of Australia as well. It's like, what can you manufacture something entirely within a country like America or Australia anymore? And he wanted to make a barbecue brush, a scrubbing brush for barbecues, because there'd been all the stories about like bristles coming off the cheaper ones, and you end up with wire bristles in your food, and people get them stuck in their throats and stuff. And he's like, oh, we should make a really good quality one, but let's see if we can make it all in America. And he goes down this rabbit hole of trying to find a factory, and that's already hard enough. And then once they've got the factory and they're like, yes, we can manufacture it here, then it's all about tool and die. It's like, well, now we need the actual casting process to be done. Oh, no, we have to do that in China, or we have to do that overseas. Right. And it was fascinating because they sort of were talking about one of the challenges in other countries is the protection of the IP, because there's no guarantee that you won't send off something to China, and that they not everywhere in China, obviously, but like that you don't have any control over whether or not that factory will just duplicate your product and then just sell it and flood the market with it cheaper. Or even when they do manufacture something in America, the tool and die side, they can just sell to other factories in other countries, and so they can just gear up. And why wouldn't they? Because they're going to all the effort of setting up a factory and the machinery to make this product.
Yep.
So they're just going to recreate it. He talked to a guy who has to label his items incorrectly. Like he comes up with different names. So instead of saying this is a sprocket, like 218 for whatever it is, he'll have to come up with another name. He'll say this is a widget, a pump widget or something like that. Yeah. So that they can't identify the use for it where they manufacture it, so that they won't then on-sell it and find a new buyer for it, a competitor. So there must be a whole world of like the made up names of products that
that actually puts me in mind of like a long standing tradition in map making and dictionary making, where like manufacturers and creators and writers and designers of maps would put fake places and fake names, and dictionaries would just put fake words, so that because everybody copies everything, and then if somebody copied it, they go, hey, that's not. So there's real famous examples on maps and in dictionaries of like fake made up places that aren't actually there, but then just got copied, and they and then people made places to match that. And say,
Ben, didn't you have a famous version of that when you were at school and people trying to copy your work? And you caught them trying to copy your work?
This was very nerdy, because this was in like a computer science class, I think. We like would write 2 copies so that then people in the class that were just trying to rip off the code, it would do something crazy on the computer.
Amazing.
Or like start, printing page after page out of the printers or something weird like that.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
It's great.
It's watermarking, protecting your
nerds have got to get one over these people. You had your ginger beer in your mug. Give yourself a little handle for your mug.
I was going to do it and keep doing it to give myself a little handle for my little ginger beer bottle, but there was just a slight too much tolerance around the edge of the bottle.
You're gonna get a little clink,
and there was going to be very unprofessional clinky clank. Jasmine's shaking her head.
My son would be very approving. He loves to experiment with all the different ways you can kind of mess around with your cutlery and your cups, and does this go in there? Does this go in there?
Oh, he'll love that old tumbler. I don't know what it's morphed into these days. The things that fit inside other things. That's a great blog.
Oh boy.
Very satisfying.
I don't know if I'm familiar with that.
You don't. Oh man.
It was just a bunch of pictures, like photos that people had taken of. It could be anything, but say like a lid of one type of container, perfectly allowing something else to sit.
Yeah.
And some of them were really satisfying.
Yes.
Yep.
Oh boy.
You wonder sometimes about. Well, I wonder. I don't think anyone else does about how many standard sizes of things there, because I'll get very excited when there's like a piece of furniture or something, you move it and it just fits perfectly into space. And if I thought more carefully about it, I'm sure I'd realize that that space has got to be like 900 or 600 mil, and this piece of furniture is probably flat packed at a certain like standard size. So there's probably happens more than you actually think, but it's just nice to have those feelings. The universe has just come together.
very satisfying. I live in an old house though, and so that doesn't happen as much as I want it to happen.
No right angles.
No, like I was so certain I was going to fit this cupboard and my desk next to each other, and it was just off by a little bit, but it wasn't even off by like a square thing. Like it would have fit one way, but at the back it didn't fit because the walls aren't.
We get
square.
so used to right angles. I tried to make a screen door for my old place, my old apartment, and it was the screen door that went out into an exterior balcony, and the balcony, I guess, had a sort of a rake to it, in the sense of like a slant to the floor for drainage purposes. But I swear, I measured twice, cut once. Is that the thing, right?
Yep.
You know, I was pretty careful. I didn't just call in the eyeball expert. What estimetrologist over here. Yeah, that'll be right. And man, I would cut it, I'd put it up, I'd hang it. It would slide on the tracks at one side, and then it would like come loose at the other. Pull it all apart, do it again, hang it. It would be fitted at one end, and then it would jam and I did it over and over again. I was like, what is going on? Until I finally realized that the ceiling and the floor were not like parallel to each other. So it was just this subtle like.
So what was gradient there before? What was there before that you were installing the racks?
I was doing
the runners.
There was a glass slide door with spring-loaded runners. Mine was just a hanging door on the track with just a cavity that would sit over the bottom runner.
So the spring itself kind of gave it that.
If you were doing it properly, you'd have two spring-loaded ones, and that's what that gives it suspension. But man, a lot of swearing happening.
Yeah, oh boy.
But I got it done, and I still walk past that old apartment, and it was still hanging there. So whoever is there has not taken it down or not been able to take it down.
They looked at it and they just went.
And you call out to some.
That took a lot of swearing to get that done. I'm leaving it up.
You like jostle some nearby child and say, "Look up there."
I have taken Harry past it and pointed and said, "I made that door."
Probably better take your own child.
I think they might be dismantling my old house. You know, the one in Ridgehaven where we used to hang out all the time. I went past there the other day to show Nora where I used to live, and there was some orange fencing up out the front, and they'd started dismantling the roof.
End of an era.
The end of an era. Yep.
Wow.
Yep. And it was one of those moments where I was just like, Nora was there, so she's 6, and there was a sticker on the power thing, and I'm like, oh, that might give a clue as to why it's. I really want to go and look at that. And
you want to find out why?
And I said, yeah,
the building's been condemned.
Nora,
wasn't the years of you living there enough of a clue to like?
You make a good point. To be honest, I'm amazed it's still standing. But I really wanted to read the thing, and Nora was there, and I just said, Nora, I'm going to be a bit naughty. I'm going to go and look at that thing. And I went over the fence just to walk up and see it. She was mortified.
Yeah.
She was just like, Brenny, what are you doing?
Yeah. That's just a rule follower.
And I just went, was that? And I got back in the car and I said, should I have done that? Was that a bit naughty? She was, that was a bit naughty. And I'm like, I'll tell you, Mum, and we'll have a chat about it. But I just really wanted to see that.
You showed a good example of owning up and owning your mistake.
Yeah, I always do that.
That was her origin story.
You could have just said, we're going to do the 3-hat puzzle. Here's a blindfold. Here's a blindfold. And your voice just gets a little quieter as you're telling the puzzle as you walk away.
Excellent.
I'm glad you brought it back to the 3-hat puzzle because I still haven't quite got my head around. So this, I don't think I would have understood that when I was a kid. Not that this show is only for kids, but I barely understood these things until I was an adult. But this is I reckon, Tom, you were telling me about the science of partial information. It's information theory, isn't it? I guess.
Yep.
So this is an example of information theory of like how much information
is known to you at a given time.
Yeah, and what changes when different reads. So I love these kind of things where it's like by virtue of the fact that they're not answering, answering is giving information about something.
Knowledge by omission.
And you told me something about now they're getting to the point where you can. There's new theories of like I don't even know if I can even explain to you. To remind you of the story you told me. It was like someone showing
and this is probably
a picture with a hole cut in it, and they could tell you where the seagull was in a picture?
Yes, I do know what you're talking about. No, that's right. I do remember that. Although this is one of those things, as I mentioned before, that I need to revisit every year. So I'll give my half-baked version of it.
That is what this show is, by the way. It is half-baked, half-remembered explanations. I don't want us to be going off and like knowing everything firsthand. People can go and read Wikipedia themselves.
It's just a long string of, I really should look that up again.
Totally.
And we never will.
And we never will.
Well, you'd appreciate this. Tom Waits, I saw an interview with the other day, and he was talking about how he's so disappointed now that when he asks people a question and they just pull out their phone and look up the answer.
Yeah.
And he says, no. I can't do Tom Waits' impression. No. I wanted you to sit and wonder in it for a minute.
It's not a bad Tom Waits.
That was pretty good. For those who do want to know, I believe that this field or whatever this idea is called zero knowledge proof. Or zero knowledge proof. Is that right, Brennan?
Yeah, I think I remember you telling me about it as well.
I like the zero knowledge part. I can get on board with that.
That's a good starting point. And the example you started to describe with the bird, the seagull, or whatever, I believe was the idea was if I have, say, a painting that's somewhat like a Where's Wally, say, a real jumble of, well, let's say birds, and all of them are penguins in the picture, and you can imagine it's just a whole mess, and it's like and it's like one of these puzzles you see online. It's like where's the pelican? Like there is a pelican here, and like 99% of people can't find it. And if I know where it is, and I want to prove to you that I know where it is, but without giving away where it is, so what I want to get across is that I have the knowledge, but I don't want to give you the knowledge, but I need to prove to you that I have the knowledge.
Okay.
And so in this example, one way I could do this is to take that picture, say it's just like big enough for me to hold in my hands, A3 sized, and I could put up a sort of a covering sheet near us, and I can poke a little hole, like maybe just a little like centimeter or a couple of centimeter hole into that sheet.
Or just borrow a sheet from your Mormon neighbors. Is that what they do?
They've got the holes already in. And then I can go behind the sheet, put the sheet up to that hole, and place the hole in such a way that I can see that I'm putting the pelican.
I see what you're saying. So you can show me, and if because you're hiding how far from the edges, like you're not giving me any information of how I could locate the thing you're showing me. But
correct.
So what does that do? That shows me that you know where it is.
Yep. But if I then come back around, it doesn't necessarily give you any extra way of you being able to identify where it is. I haven't given away where it is. Example,
don't laugh, is not just about pictures of penguins and pelicans, right? So like that's meant to be illustrating something to me about like what?
I believe it's just an example of one application of zero knowledge proof. Okay. But if you were to be rigorous about this, I think I saw that example on one of those videos where it's explain this concept in 5 different levels, and this was I think the kindergartner levels.
Right, gotcha. Yeah,
this was one that was meant to be easily understood by kids.
Said that part to me before I started telling you I didn't understand it.
That I didn't even understand that level. Lost at level 1.
Is there a level below kindergarten?
And then it gets to but there's other good formulations of puzzles like the going into the cave and having to come up against a door where there's a passcode or something, and then coming back out, and you want to and it's one of those caves where you can there's a circuit inside the cave to get all the way around, and you want to prove to someone that you can get all the way through,
right?
And it's I don't know, one of those sort of formulations of things.
Episode of MacGyver, I think.
Yeah, exactly. He could have used this modern technology. I do find it all fascinating, And again, this puzzle-based learning course I did, just to bring it back to this 3-hat puzzle that we just watched. And I think, Brennan, you actually said these words almost, but the key was to enumerate the possibilities. So as the puzzle is described with the 3 hats, and Deane goes through and says, now, if it were the case that, I have this hat, and then he walks through the whole situation and all the different little possibilities along that road, because there are just a limited number of total possible ways that it could have happened, and that was a key part of it, was to enumerate
that's the best way I've found to explain the Monty Hall problem to someone. That famous puzzle about you got the 3 doors, and two of them have a like goat behind it, and one of them has a car or something. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's just like one of them's got a prize.
Yeah, one of them's got a prize,
have
and
got
like
a booby prize.
you pick one, and then out of the two that you didn't pick, the host will reveal one of them that doesn't have will reveal one of the goats, and whether it's statistically beneficial for you to stick with your original guess or swap. And the answer, like statistically, is it's better to swap. And explaining why that is, like statistically better, like if you did it infinite times, it would be beneficial for you to swap more times. And explaining that to someone is really tricky until you kind of say, well, imagine that your first pick was like a car. That will only happen 33% of the time, whereas picking one that's not the car will happen more often. So in order to get to that next one, it's like the first that step will happen more often because
right. And in puzzle
enumerating it is
and our
like,
very smart friend Daniel Brunner tried patiently to explain that to me over and over again, and I just could not get it. I'm pretty sure he was doing the kindergarten version for me.
You didn't want it to be true.
Yeah.
Well, in puzzle-based learning with Zabizhnev, he showed he did a good version of that, where not just enumerating all the possibilities, but drawing it in a tree structure that made it very clear how you're getting to all the different outcomes, and if you did them in a different color pen, it did make it nice and clear. That was one of the nice ones. But I think I remember we've talked about this, Ben, over the years about the Monty Hall problem and your frustrations with how it's formulated sometimes, and I think that's pretty common. But I think it shows.
I'll blame the problem if I can.
Same with this 3 hat puzzle, I think, and the zero proof concept with the picture of the birds. It does, if someone is struggling with the intuition of it, which is very fair in a lot of cases, it does help to understand it to a good level of rigor, because say with the picture of the birds, you might say, but hang on, what if I went behind this screen and swapped out the picture of the birds? Then where's the integrity of knowing that you've got the same picture? Like, what have you proved? It's like, that's actually a really good point. That is part of it. It's not just a mathematical thing. You've got to, actually have some rigor at this. And so with the Monty Hall problem, I think that whole, the host knows what's behind all of the doors, and so has some knowledge that can be applied to the situation is one part of it. And that's another. In the 3 hat puzzle, you're getting some information by either something that someone is doing or something that someone is not doing, but you knew was a possibility. So
and
it's all that,
they
like,
often
rigor.
say, and did Deane say, like, they often will say something like, and every person participating in this has perfect logical. He's going to use perfect logical reasoning.
Right.
Yeah, that's probably the most elegant version of that problem I've heard, because it doesn't involve like a wall, a fourth person. Like the first one I ever heard was that there were 4 people and they all had hats, and 3 of them were facing a wall, one behind each other, and the other one was on the other side of the wall. And there were 2 red hats and 2 blue hats, and the person facing the wall on the 3-person side could only see the wall. The person behind them could see the person in front of them and the wall, and then the person at the back could see the 2 people in front of them and the wall, and the person behind the wall could only see the wall. And it was like, this person could see this person and this person and this person, and that was the first version of this that I'd heard. And it was like, who calls out? And the other thing was, like, after 10 minutes, someone called out the correct answer. They called out the color of their own hat.
Yeah, and, like,
and who was it? And why? And it was from like what was it? Through like proof through it was
enumeration.
It was the first one that you said about this problem. It was because other people didn't say anything.
Oh, by omission.
Yeah.
Knowledge by omission.
Knowledge. Thank you. Yeah, knowledge by omission, and it was that. But this is. I do like that the people who aren't blindfolded don't know, and it's the person who is blindfolded who calls out their name. That's kind of like
Classy.
a cool. That's what makes this more elegant and kind of cooler.
Because if you did try this with your friends,
Yeah.
you would look really cool. Being
You
able
would
to, like,
really cool.
Yeah.
And
it would be so satisfying to actually end up in one of these prisons one day where they're like, it's you
I
and
know
three
every
other
version of
prisons.
this puzzle.
There must be some weird prison. Maybe that's why. Maybe they're in Poland. Maybe that's why
Yeah.
these Polish logicians and people come over and teach. It's like, I was in a Polish prison and there was 3 other prisoners.
We have
and
learned all the prisoners doing others, all of them.
But there was another version on Hey Riddle Riddle, the podcast that I mentioned earlier, because what they do is they do improving, but they base it on the conceit that there is that they do riddles on the podcast, but it always devolves into just improv scenes. But one of the riddles was a version of this, but there were like 100 people, and everyone behind someone could see all the people in front of them, and it ended up being like how many people. It ended up being like just an odd or even thing.
Oh,
It was
right.
it was like all like the second person down the line could do it or something because of like whether they.
Yeah, I just saw
it
one
was
of those
crazy.
the other
I
day,
can't
and it
remember
was
exactly.
framed in such a weird way.
Yeah,
It was-
they all are.
There is a long line of lions, and the guy like he does it in this.
I love it already.
He's this
50 or
Indian
60,
guy.
I'd
He
say.
does it in this Indian accent, which I won't do. But his accent aside, it's just his very measured way of being. There is a long line of many lions, and there is one piece of meat, but the piece of meat is cursed, and it has a curse on it. And every lion, the lion at the front of the line, can choose to eat the meat. But if he eats the cursed meat, for 1 minute, he will turn into the cursed meat. Or he could choose
There's a
not
better
to
way to
eat
do this.
the cursed
Yeah,
meat.
there's a better
and
way.
go to the back of the line. But my problem is I get so distracted by the non-important, by the story of these things.
Wow.
I'm like, what an interesting way to choose to frame this.
Oh man.
It's like it was the first way as they're trying to formulate the puzzle,
Yeah.
but then they never workshopped it or changed it.
Yeah.
They're like, that's the one.
That's it. We got it.
All right, another one.
Let's watch
Yeah.
another clip.
Wonder what's going to happen if I just click the next one on.
Oh man.
Curiosity show.
Another different
so
intro.
good. The variety.
A lot of the most beautiful shells are beautiful because of their lining of
Rob, my boy.
wonderful multicolored shiny stuff inside. Trouble is they're pretty boring on the outside, like the abalone. And here's another one. Mother of pearl inside, and not boring on the outside, but certainly not nearly as shiny. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could make the entire shell mother of pearl? Well, you can, but never do this with rare specimens. Use the common stuff that you find on the beach, and it's very interesting to see the mother of pearl that really lies underneath all that gunky stuff.
So immediately a nautical theme
Yeah,
with Rob,
he's
the
just like
man.
you predicted.
Doesn't he have a brilliant voice as well?
I did not remember that voice.
No.
Yeah, he's so well spoken, and I love these guys.
Does he have a naval background? Do you think? Is he?
I don't know. I don't know.
There's something.
Must
He's
do.
got a kind of a British sort of sound to his
yeah,
voice, doesn't he?
He's just Adelaidean to the core. He's that real sort of like, yeah.
So a kid's supposed to know whether they've picked up a rare.
Yeah.
That's a good question. I
Don't try
know.
this with a. He's got a.
He's catering to the rare possibility that one of the kids watching's parents have a rare collection of shells,
Oh, yeah.
and he doesn't want them to
Protecting.
go to the shelf of rare shells, the rare shell shelf, and destroy his expensive shells.
Good guy, Rob.
Good guy, Rob.
I don't know if it's just because I'm listening. I've got like a lot of James Bond on the brain, but I'm getting a lot of Q.
Oh,
voice here.
yes.
Now
Do
listen.
bring it back in one piece, 007.
Now
Yeah.
listen.
Do
up,
try to
007.
bring it back in.
Don't use one of the rare abalone or the rare mother of pearls. Do pay attention,
Don't
Bond.
touch that. That's my lunch.
Oh, that was when Cleese takes over, isn't it? So Desmond Llewellyn is.
I think that's that's Goldeneye, so that's a Desmond
Desmond Llewellyn. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
Wonderful multicolored shiny stuff inside. Trouble is they're pretty boring on the outside, like the abalone. And here's another one.
mother of pearl inside, and not boring on the outside, but certainly not nearly as shiny. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could make the entire shell mother of pearl? Well, you can, but never do this with rare specimens. Use the common stuff that you find on the beach.
This is turning a shell into mother of pearl.
Lies underneath all that gunky stuff. One word of warning, don't start with shells like this. If they don't show any mother of pearl, they're not going to come up. Besides, they're pretty beautiful as they are. You'll be disappointed with those. Go for a shell that either has a mother of pearl lining, like this one, or for one in which you see mother of pearl.
So we must be in the 70s again. We've got the wood panel background again.
Yeah. And look at the size of that collar.
I was going to say, and he's got it zipped right down to the nipple, but a little bit of chain under the chain around the neck. I mean, I was asking if Rob and Deane were sex symbols, but I'm definitely getting a little more heat coming off Rob.
Oh yeah, love to hear it.
So whip off that outer layer. We do that with an acid, and the most freely available acid to you is vinegar, which is a thing called acetic acid, and it's fairly mild. But if you pour some into a glass or an old tumbler or something and drop your shell in, you'll see that after a while that starts to fizz. Little bubbles are forming on the outside. Now they're forming very slowly because acetic acid, vinegar, is a pretty mild acid indeed. We can speed up the whole process by making it a stronger acid, and all you have to do that is to add table salt, a fairly generous proportion, and stir it up.
So the old box of salt hasn't really changed much, has it?
I mean, how can you improve on perfection?
When did those lighthouse, plastic containers?
Of the iodized table salt. Yeah. They're still going.
Shell is how much the acid has to eat through the mouth.
So salt and vinegar.
Or best part of it, it should look something like this. And
it is shining up quite nicely.
Pour it out, and you'll see that that outer surface is going. It leaves a white chalky mass behind it. This is where the toothbrush comes in. You use that to scrub away at the surface and clean off all the gunk. You see there's not much of the outer surface left there. It's just sitting around in the corners there. And that's the last part to go. Keep on going. Be careful it doesn't attack the shell itself there or at the lip. And use your judgment. Keep on plonking it back in the acid until you think it's ready. And when it is, it's going to look like that. You won't see any of the outer colour on it at all. A final wash in water, and you'll get all the brilliant colours of the mother of pearl.
I didn't hear. Did he say how long to leave it in there? Or did he just...
Did a few hours, I think.
A few hours.
It's amazing because underneath that rather dull exterior of many shells is a great treasure of mother of pearl.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did not know that.
Go. I might try that out. I might go to the beach and get like 2 shells that look similar.
Yeah.
And then do that with like Nora. And then you can see to have something to compare it to begin with,
That's a great idea. That one was very
just vinegar and salt.
Yeah.
2 things that you would think shells would have to protect themselves because you do find them quite close to the beach.
Yeah.
Although I suppose they didn't, evolve in an environment where salt and vinegar was going to be applied.
No,
to
that comes
deep
later.
fried potatoes. Mother of pearl. Yeah, that was always a fascinating thing when you go to the beach. There's something about like the rainbow in a pre-CD and DVD era.
Yeah.
The one thing you can get to get like a kind of holographic kind of effect.
That or the particular kind of exercise book contact that the cool kids would have. You know the one I'm talking about.
Oh, that kind of metallic sheen. Yeah.
I never got that stuff. I got the clear stuff.
I was never a baller kid like that.
No.
We got the reusable plastic sleeves that you have to take off and put on next year's books.
Yeah.
I got your old ones, Ben.
You were lucky to live in a lake.
I had to clean them in vinegar.
Yeah. Can you remember that specific kind of exercise book? It was like it was like the Tudor brand or something.
Yep.
And it had a picture
Purple
of a
and black
Tudor,
lines.
and it was like, and then on the back it had all the units and measurement.
I
loved that. And they had the old long scale of number definitions. They had like 1,000 million, and then billion was a million.
Oh.
And then trillion was a billion, and they had those words for the long scale.
Was that an English thing?
I get. I mean, it's pretty much universal now that you go trillion, billion.
I reckon that was in a
quadrillion.
riddle book when I was a kid. Would
Yeah.
you rather be a billionaire in like England or America
that's
or
good.
something like that? Because it was like a million if it was in England, but it was
History puzzle.
1,000 million.
Yeah, there was a mathematician on Numberphile who was defending the long scale.
Okay.
For
Because otherwise
it was
it's going
the
up in powers of 3.
Yeah.
Instead of
yeah.
just duplicate.
Yeah. But then I heard like billiard and trilliard. I think there might be newer fashioned words for the long scale, but I don't know.
What about
Do your own
long
research.
numbers? Did you get into big numbers, like the massively large numbers, and how to create them?
like Rayo's number
Yeah,
and
Howard's number. I think
Yeah,
was
yeah.
one. And they formulate them with these crazy things of like, what's the one where you put it in a square and then you put it in a hexagon and then you put it in a circle, and it's like a 3 in a circle, or like a 2 is like 2 to the power of itself in a square or something, and then they become these kind of recursive powers, and they become these like extraordinarily large numbers.
I always found it like, I mean, maybe this sounds dumb, but I always found it like cool that we can notate that and we can like write that number. Like it means something. It means something that you can calculate,
because it can be calculated.
It's not just like, oh, this means a huge number. It's like it actually has a value.
They can
it has
say
a
we
distinct...
can't calculate it because it would take too long, but we know the last digit is 4
Yeah.
or something like that.
There's a whole lot of other properties about it, probably.
Yeah.
You can create a whole algebra around it, but
Yeah.
there's nothing that could accurately represent it.
Yeah.
Its size in the universe.
Yeah.
It's that big.
And I just love when something has like a unique calculable value that if you were to write it out, like you cannot imagine how big it is, but we can just write it. We just write this means that, and only that. I don't know.
Write it over and over again.
It is like when you're a kid. It's like I'm thinking of the biggest number ever. It's like, I'm thinking of that number, but plus 1.
Yeah. What?
Do you remember Avogadro's number?
Is that
6 times 10 to the 23, I think, isn't it?
Wow. Oh, is that how many moles of? No, how many molecules are in a mole of a?
Yeah.
Avocado's number.
I just like the
0.2
name.
times 10 to the 20. Yeah, I think so.
If you were going to have a name, have your name named after a number, like what number would you want? Like what?
Tom's number.
Yeah, Tom's number. Brendan's number. Something really big.
No, I've got really small because I am quite big in real life.
The number of quills on every porcupine in the world.
So it's in
number.
flux.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
Maybe it's always. Maybe what if I define it as it's always a constant? Yeah,
like the meter, we have to reverse engineer the porcupines so that they always match that number.
I think mine would be the number of 24 packs of Pepsi Max that you can optimally fit in the back of a troop carrier. I reckon that would be.
Is that
Brendan's number?
One of those neat things? Have you tried this?
No, I haven't actually.
Because they are like carton sizes must be like standard size.
Yeah.
And widths of cars in general, aren't they? Is it an old wives' tale? This thing about like cars had a certain axle width that was roughly to do with the width of roads, which is roughly to do with
wagon.
And it goes back to like ancient Rome or something. Or is that just made up?
There's probably a kernel of truth in it.
Because there's different gauges of like
railway
lines and stuff, isn't there?
Yeah. And it's annoying because Melbourne is different to Adelaide, I think.
Really?
Yeah, I think Melbourne's got its own. Is it Melbourne or Sydney? There's one that's standard gauge and one that's wide gauge. Oh. And so you can't, like, you have to, they can't, like, buy the trains or something because it's, like, just a different gauge from one capital city to another.
Right.
Each city says, why would we want them?
Yeah.
In Adelaide, they're like, why would we want Melbourne trains? And in Melbourne, they're like, why would we want Adelaide trains?
And I think a lot of the...
You'll sound like bloody Rob Morrison and Desmond over there.
We have, in Adelaide, we, of course, have the
schooner train. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, go on. We have the Oban, the concrete track that like buses
Das
just
Autobahn.
Das Autobahn. That and then any bus with the like little, you can see the little wheel next to the front steering wheel that guides them on the track,
but like horizontal.
Yeah,
so you have your regular front wheels, but you have the little horizontal guidance wheel.
Yeah, and that I think back in the day when the Oban first like came, like it was built, I think Adelaide purchased like a bunch of buses from somewhere else, and I think they had to like cut the bus down the middle and change my granddad told me this. So I'm now
story from the Bible.
I'm now thinking, I know that we're not
in half. And Adelaide will have one half, and Melbourne
either
will have the
widen
other
it or
half.
shrink it so it fit on the Oban. I know we say a lot of stuff that needs, folks to do their own research, but this one I might.
Any of the ones that start with my granddad told me this. I reckon definitely do your own research.
Well, you haven't met my granddad. He's on the level.
I just know if I drove one of those buses, I'd get the one with like the shopping trolley shonky wheel. That's just like.
I had a shopping trolley that just the wheel fell off completely. The other week.
Whoa!
And it was.
Did your groceries all fall out?
Yes,
tragically?
they did.
Oh no!
It was the half.
That is so something that would happen to you, Ben.
It was the half size trolley. So the ones where it's like the level is like up to the top,
gotcha.
right?
I love them, by the way.
And
I love
must have laid out everything in the trolley relatively like evenly.
That would be the worst trolley for it to happen to as well.
I was walking along with it. Or no, it didn't even. The wheel didn't even fall off. I think it just didn't have one of the third wheel, and I hadn't noticed because it had the back two wheels where I was holding onto the handle, so it was relatively stable with a third front left wheel. I'm walking along, and it wasn't until I put a box of water, which was like the heaviest thing possibly in the front, and then the whole thing just tipped over.
Yeah,
and stuff just fell out. In front of this lady who couldn't quite comprehend that I just didn't have a wheel on the trolley. So it somehow seemed like it was my fault.
Yeah.
My trolley had just upended itself. So then I'm like,
no, the wheel fell
off.
off. She says, it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. Not even going to look.
And this story won't mean anything to the listeners, but I just seen Greg Gardner in the shopping center as well. And so I piled everything back onto my trolley and then had to hold my trolley because half the stuff fell out, but half didn't.
And you can't just leave the pile and go get another trolley.
No, I was sort of pot committed to this trolley.
Yeah.
But I had to then stabilize the trolley like myself. So I was holding it and I was really excited to go back and show Greg. Hey, Greg, look what I've got a trolley with no like wheel on it. And he thought it was the best. I knew he was the perfect person. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was so excited to see it. He's like, that's crazy.
He would have found that hilarious.
Your arms full of trolley and groceries.
I can see him laughing now.
And then the guy I thought, well, I better tell them when I get to the front counter. And I like offloaded everything onto the counter. And I was like, he's like, you having a good day? I was like, yeah, my trolley fell over because it's only got 3 wheels. And he went, huh. All right.
He didn't believe it either.
I was like, what do you want me to do with it? He's like, yeah, I don't know. You know what? It's probably my bloody girlfriend. My bloody girlfriend. I was around at her house and she like had brought a trolley home from the shops. I said, you can't do that. I work at the shops. You can't bring trolleys home. She's like, but I needed to. I needed to like bring all my shopping home. And I was like, I'm going to get in trouble if they find out that my girlfriend's got a trolley at home. She just didn't care.
What a story to tell.
But what do you want me to do with the trolley with the 3 wheels? And I guess I'll put it in the corner.
Buddy. Like, say hi to your girlfriend. What? That's amazing.
He didn't want to get in trouble, but he didn't mind telling you the story.
He was very open. I think he misread the situation, thinking we were just exchanging funny stories about trolleys.
Yeah.
You really understand that I was treating
asking,
him as the responsible person who had to deal with this trolley, so it wouldn't happen again.
As the employee, That's the worst trolley for it to happen to, because a normal standard trolley, of course, the center of gravity would be so much lower, and so it wouldn't pivot as much. But this guy, the base is so much higher over the like. It
was pretty dramatic when it all went.
Yeah, I'll bet. No.
And me being me, I kind of apologized to the person in the aisle next to me. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
It's like, it was the trolley's fault. The trolley should have apologized.
I
had a similar thing looking at a apartment in Sydney, which is just like crazy apartment market over there. And I opened up it was the strangest orientation of cupboards in this place. There was like 12-foot ceilings and then a floor-to-ceiling cupboard on one side of the wall. But the cupboard had maybe like a half-meter high door at the bottom.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the cupboard as a single door all the way to the ceiling.
Right.
So one far
So it's
too
like an upside down
small-
fridge. Like one.
Yes.
Yeah.
But with a inconveniently too small cabinet at the bottom and a much too large cabinet at the top, which when I went to open the door, the whole door just fell off in my hand. It landed with a massive bang on the ground because it's just
the
a
top
big
door.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
It's just this 9-foot piece of wood fell off. And I come downstairs, all the lights are off, and there's also just dead bugs everywhere because it's just Sydney Market. And there was a line out the door of about 20 people waiting to see this place. The window was from 10:30 to 10:39 in the morning. It was the window that this place, it was a 9-minute showing at this apartment. Boy. The bloke had more product in his hair than Deane Hutton did in the 70s. And he's probably 19 years old. And I went to him. He goes, "Are you done?" I said, "Well, yeah, I just need to let you know that there's a massive door up there that just comes off the hinges because I saw there were some families wanting to look at this place. So just make sure they know that they don't do that if a kid comes up." And he just stared through me as I was like just nodding. He's like, yeah. So you're done because we need a show another place. So can you leave? And it's such an interesting spin on the real estate market of
it tells you everything really that you need to know about it.
Like you are an inconvenience being here looking at this place that I've already probably got people paying over the
It's like I don't care if kids get hurt.
That's right.
Essentially, please leave by 10:39.
That is very Ben for the day that a wheel was going to come off a trolley, you picked the worst trolley for it, and the day that a door was going to come off the hinges, you picked the wrong door. Could have just done the little one down the bottom, and it would have been that the real estate agent still would have been a jerk.
We find each other, me and the broken things of this world. Yeah.
You could have opened the little door, but what would you expect to find in there?
Well, now that I think about it, that wasn't even the weirdest arrangement of cupboards that I saw in a place. So there was another place we went to, and we rocked up, and Kate was pregnant at the time, and the real estate agent stopped us as we were about to walk in and said, "Oh, you don't have children, do you?" We said, and I said no, because we didn't yet. And he goes, "Oh, I wouldn't bother showing you this place if you have kids." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And so now I'm intrigued. I'm like, we got to look. I walked inside, and the front entrance, the door didn't quite open all the way because it was blocked by a wall about 4 feet from the front door.
Oh, right.
We had to do a sharp left to turn sideways. So I don't even know how you'd get any furniture inside the front door now that I think about it.
Oh, whoa.
And then this place must have been some old factory or something. I don't know what it was, but there was a cast iron spiral staircase with no railings on it.
Cool.
That started going up. I thought it was amazing, this place. Kate wouldn't go past the first flight of stairs because there was no railings. And then at odd angles, there was no right angles once again, as per your place, Brennan. There was just gangplanks like with no railings, like out of a Batman movie, just going off to different areas of this like building that I can only assume must have had all sorts of like machinery or pneumatics in it at one point, because there was just cavities in the walls.
Oh boy.
So one was like the size and shape of a coffin just in the wall, just like a sort of a 40 centimeter by 40 centimeter.
Yeah, I was going to say
like 10-foot depression into a wall.
There's no way murders haven't happened here.
But interestingly, they just put a little curtain like across that cavity. So they've made it homely, but I'm not sure what that is meant to be. I don't know if a person's meant to sleep in it or if you just put luggage in it, but they just put a little shower curtain and obviously chopped off the bottom because it was just like unhemmed. So it's just this like little 40 centimeter curtain across this little cavity.
In Sydney, you probably could get $200 a week for that.
Oh, I think students would have absolutely,
just the cavity.
That place out.
Just the cavity.
That's right. So I was disappointed we didn't take that place.
Fight scenes. That's all I was imagining.
Yeah. Because they always joke about that in movies of like, most of Gotham City's problems would be solved by just work health safety. Like if they just put railings on gangplanks. Like you shouldn't have catwalks over acid vats.
No.
In general, and yet the number of times that happened in 80s action movies.
This is what I love, the variety. Something you can do at home. Something you can try
on the
do
beach
at home. And then one thing that might not appeal to everybody. They're like, so that would have appealed. That logic problem would have appealed to me as a kid because my dad would have liked it, and I kind of would have been a bit like, I don't get this, but I would have been intrigued that this is something that I can get one day. Like this kind of way of thinking is a thing that exists, and that would have excited me. Like. So I don't know. I mean, you won't find me saying a bad word about it.
Deane captures in his voice just the right amount of like, this is interesting. And you will find this interesting without being like, I know this thing.
Yeah,
and you
right.
Don't know it.
Yeah, then
It's just right.
Yeah,
I'm loving this.
Yeah.
Try it on your friends.
Try it on your friends.